My name is Brendan Lowney, Vice Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. I'd like to bring our session, sorry, one second, for July 7, 2025. And first place of business, I'd like to welcome Jeff Handler to the Trust. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
being
having
here.
me.
And we'll go right to our first agenda item. First of all, I'm sorry, any public comment? Okay. And we'll go to new business. A, discussion accessory dwelling units, ADUs, affordability using affordable housing trust funds. Bob, would you like to start?
Yeah, I just want to follow up. This was brought to us about 6 months ago, and our response at that time was, this is a great idea.
Yeah.
What can we do with this? And we haven't really, because of other issues, we haven't really had time to talk about that and to make any kind of a plan as to how to go about addressing that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to put it on the agenda to begin that conversation. How are we going to planfully approach this question?
Okay, great.
Don't look down here at me. I'd like to
Not
hear
yet, I'm
from
gonna
you
leave you
first.
alone. I'd like to reach out to Noreen Donahue. You came about, was it 6 months, 8 months ago? Any comments on following up on that?
Hello, Noreen Donahue speaking on my own behalf. Actually, I haven't had any time to look further into it either. But, you know, I know there are so many new ADU by right things and things like that, that I don't know how that concept of mine, which is, you know, pretty common, I just formalized it, will work with the ADU by rights. And then also, out of your territory, there was the question of, can that be used for, you know, that type of process be used for workforce housing? But I'll summarize it quickly if you want to know what it was. All it was for the public was that if you had a single-family home in Harwich, typically the ranch house, Cape Cod style ranch house, as we know, there are so many of them with extra room, with one person living in them. And if you wanted to convert that to an ADU, for the sake of discussion, let's say that conversion would cost $250,000. I would come to you folks and I would say, if you give me $250,000, then I'll make that new unit affordable, deed restricted affordable housing. And you guys would say, great, and I'd go and convert it, and then I'd come back to you and I'd say, listen, I said, I'll make it even better for you if you give me another $50,000, and of course these are just plain numbers, then I'll sign a paper that says either when I sell or pass away, my primary home will also become affordable deed restricted. So basically you'd be getting 2 units, again, plain numbers, for $300,000. If you were able to do 5 or 6 of those a year, you could have 10 or 15 more affordable housing units for short money, for $1 million, $1.5 million.
Great.
So, but there are so many ADUs ideas out there now, it's hard to sort, you know, where they all land. I'm sure Christine Flynn would have a lot more knowledge on that.
Great, thank you.
If I might.
Yeah.
I think that there's no question in my mind that this is a good idea. How do we take a good idea and grow it? So in a planful way, is that our job? Do we look to get other guidance from those who are experts in the ADU world? I'm not.
I remember at our last discussion, one of the questions that came up, of course, was the legality. And I don't remember if it was confirmed or what was said then about, you know, can you make just one half of your house ADU? So, I mean, as to first steps, I think I think the legality of whatever goes forward, you know, has to be figured out, so.
So who's our legal counsel? KP Law,
KP Law.
okay? Are they the people that have an expertise in ADUs and affordable housing?
Well, I mean, well, the state revised everything, which trumps what we originally did in February.
Right.
So the ADU law is already established, so it can be done by right. And so how do we get involved as far as giving funds? And, you know, up to 100% AMI, we can participate, so anything below that. So we would have to put a deed restriction on the property. I think splitting the property, that's something KP Law can talk to. I don't think that's a possibility, but we could participate very similar to what the fire station did. They already had an existing building, they were building and they came to us. It's not really done through a comprehensive permit, it's done under the LIP process, the LAU, which is the Local Action Units Program. And we would deed restrict the property. So the ADU can be the deed restricted property, and we would give funds. And, you know, up to this point, we've been given, I think we had this conversation at one of your open sessions, Jeff. We've been giving, you know, $150,000 per door, you know, per unit. If we move forward with something like this, I like to really put some math to it. So whether your unit's gonna be 600 square feet, 800 square feet, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, you know, what is the gap? So if someone were to get a 5% loan, if that's even possible, if the banks participate in the ADU programs that they're starting, what is the gap gonna be per month to make it more, you know, incentivizing for homeowners to do this? Like, why would you deed restrict your property? You know, is $150,000, does that fill the gap? So I think that's something I like to look into. And really put, like I said, put some math to it, and not just not doling out $150,000
Sure,
per unit.
sure. But is that for us to do, or are we in the position of bringing in a consultant to put together a whole package that would address each individual point? Don't we need that kind of expertise?
Yes and no. When you do the local action units program, the state's available for that, and you still have to go through a lottery process. Even though it's one unit, you will still have to go through a lottery process. I double-checked that with the state last week. So I think there's enough help, and then we have Brianna as well to handle that. And then it will go to the town administrator to figure out, to do the deed restriction with KP Law. But I think we can develop a program, and then maybe limit it. It's not something like, you know, we're giving out money and we get 10. You know, maybe it's we do 2 or just 3 a year, and there's an application process. But yeah, I think we could develop that. I think it's something we could work on, or give it to Brianna, or bring the housing committee into this.
Is the Mass Housing Partnership a resource for us?
They could be. I'm just trying to think, you know, what they've done for us in the past is feasibility studies on properties that we've had. This is such a small little,
It is and it isn't. I mean, I think what we're talking about is developing a pilot project
yeah,
to really cause us to bring together all of the moving parts
yeah.
and all of the different laws and concepts that apply.
So Claudia, welcome. We're just talking about the ADUs.
Okay,
And I don't know if you were here when Noreen presented it about 6 to 8 months ago.
yes,
She presented that nice little, like, how can we get involved in ADUs and
Yes.
funding and everything else.
yeah.
So we're just continuing that conversation on what we can do as a trust to get some kind of pilot plan going.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, and Bob, all great points. And I'm scratching notes, kind of like all over the place. So, has this been done in the Commonwealth before, anywhere? Has anything like this been done before in the Commonwealth?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I would start there. I would see if there's some kind of template see if this is occurring anywhere, the success of it, the shortcomings of it. That would be the first thing I would do, and I think Brianna could probably be tasked with that. Just see if there's anything like a deed restriction, end result from a housing trust, a local housing trust kind of thing. Forgive me, these might not be in the best order. What, in fact, you got me thinking about, what is the intersection with the actual town government side of things? So, the shy list, I know that's a state, but also the town has to manage it as well, to a certain degree. And these are all things that, if this has been done in the Commonwealth before, these answers probably would be very easy to find out. But, if we do this, is this gonna count toward the shy list, which I assume it would, but what's the process? And then, the tax rate. I know that there's different tax rates for, shy list properties, and I think our own Richard Waystack is doing a little bit of work on that. We'll probably hear from him down the road as to maybe a modification of that, or some kind of clarity as to how the town may want to go forward, which brings me to how the town would intersect with the trust on this, or the process. Does there need to be a policy change anywhere? And that's where the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board would come in. And if there was needing to be a change in policy. I believe KP Law would probably be a real good asset for us in terms of figuring out answers to a lot of these questions. And then lastly, why would a homeowner want to, I think it was you said, or Brent, like, why would a homeowner want to do this and deed restrict their property in perpetuity forever? I'm not saying I would or wouldn't. I would just like to have a lot more information to go by if I were a homeowner.
Absolutely.
Before I would, take funds and then find out that maybe there's a lottery involved in it, and then my house is deed restricted, and there's a lot of layers to this.
Correct, yeah.
And then I go back to what I said in the very beginning. If someone else is doing it, let's find that out.
Let's try to find more than that. It's a great thing to do for
Absolutely.
Brianna to task with.
Absolutely.
That's a
I
great
think it's
idea.
a great idea, and I love the outside-the-box thinking, but the devils are gonna be in the details
Yeah.
with this.
And then keep in mind, 80% AMI is where we get on the shy list. We
Right.
can go up to 100%
Mhm.
AMI, but if we control a project, we should always shoot for that, very similar to the Penrose project
Correct.
on Queen Anne Road.
Right.
So we put into the RFP that we wanted 80% or less, or average out, to get all the units counted.
Count.
So we had that control because we own the property.
That's right.
So it's a little bit different when the developer comes to the table and they're picking and choosing or just doing the 25% rule.
Right.
So for us, we could drive how we want this to be and make sure it hits the shy list if we're giving money. That's the way I would prefer it to be. But I think that's great to maybe get Brianna to at least start the initial tracking of the information.
I think the two pieces would be good, to bring Brianna into it and to also bring on KP Law, because they have a way of being able to look across the Commonwealth too,
Right.
relative to what's happening in other towns, in other communities. So I'd like to engage both pieces, both arms at the same time.
If this has been done anywhere in the Commonwealth,
Mhm.
there's probably a good chance that KP Law was involved. They do an awful lot in the Commonwealth.
Okay, that's good.
And they may know of,
Good.
they may be able to help Brianna aim at the right town,
Okay,
make a phone call.
that's great. So as a first step, I think that's a good way for us to begin.
Agreed.
Marie?
If I could, I just wanted to address Jeff's last question, not all the ones before that, which is why would people want to do this? So without giving out my age, as a septuagenarian who lives in about a 1,500 square foot ranch house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, there are so many of those with one person living in them, and all those rooms we do not use. So, and many of us could use the cash. So the reason we would do it, and many of us had children and grandchildren, don't want to buy a place on the Cape, and we came from over the bridge. So you would do it because you only need a nice, and so you'd wind up with 1 bedroom and 1 bath on one side, 2 bedrooms with one bath on the other side, already there. No tree cutting very much at all. Utilities are already in the yard. And so the reason we would want to do it would be a benefit both ways.
Thank you.
And
Thank
a
you.
lot of us would want to do it. And I think it would go more for people who are trying to do it anyway, but can't afford that $200,000 to $300,000 nut, you know, to cross over, and that might be because that homeowner would still get rent, albeit smaller, so they'd be, you know, earning money, or they'd be getting something for that unit, so.
Mr. Chair, through you, if I could, to Noreen.
Sure.
Thank you. Well put, and thank you for opening my eyes to how you see it, the process. For me, as long as it's helping a Harwich resident, either, as you put it, get a little cash, and then the end product is that it's gonna be something that someone else can buy, deed restricted, and maybe continue to do the same
Oh, yeah,
thing,
right, okay.
then it definitely makes more sense to me now. Thank you.
I think the other piece too that was important to me when I was thinking about this, and important to everyone, is that it's a way to grow affordable housing, even though it's small, without digging up neighborhoods. You know, you have a neighborhood with 20 houses and all of a sudden one is a duplex. You know, I mean, there's no, you know, really damage or anything to that neighborhood. People grow right within the neighborhood rather than being enclaved into separate developments. So they grow the way neighborhoods used to grow, so,
Repurposing or continuing to use the same property.
right.
I like it.
Yeah.
Claudia?
Was there, when we talked about this before, and you guys might have already discussed this, there was a question about whether or not you could deed restrict part of a home. So like we would deed restrict the ADU, but not the house itself. So I guess if we're talking in KP Law about their experience, that was something that came up. I don't know if it actually got resolved the last time we talked about it.
It hasn't. That's
Okay.
something we're talking about. Maybe
Okay.
We'll get
Yeah.
KP Law and then Brianna, you know, asking the questions of the state.
Okay,
Just elaborating on my initial phone call
got it.
that I had last week with them.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Kathy Green, representing Community Preservation Committee and the Real Estate and Open Space Committee. I just wanted to say that we want to make sure that since a large part of your funding is using Community Preservation Act funds, that they can be used for accessory dwelling units, et cetera. So that would be something to check out.
Yeah.
Also, the Community Development Partnership and Housing Assistance Corporation both deal a lot with ADUs. So those would be really great resources.
Thank you.
Brandon, I think that with the community development partnership too, they were offering funds. So they were, I don't know how they were doing it through state or federal funds, but they were offering, if you did do it, they would give you, you know, there were certain requirements around it. But I think at the time I looked at it, it would, I don't know what it was. 10,000, okay. And they were trying to up that, so they've been consistently working on trying to expand that program to help with the cost, which I think well, there's a lot of us who would love to do something like this and create an affordable housing unit, but the costs are pretty prohibitive at the moment.
I think that fund's already been exhausted too.
Has it?
Yeah, when I
Okay,
called Hack this morning, that was on their voicemail.
got it.
So,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
interesting, so
all right then.
this happened to pop up.
Okay,
Good afternoon, Art Bowden. ADUs, just about every town on Cape is doing something with them right now. There's a plethora of information out there. I don't think I'd run off to hire a lawyer, I think, coming out of the gate. I would get as much information as I possibly can get for free and for people that's already doing it. Go back a while, one of the comments I made when ADUs was in town, when we were rewriting the bylaws, and I brought up the subject of incentives, because the price to build an ADU is not cheap. So, and everyone was worried about, well, we're gonna have an ADU, we're gonna be ADU overloaded here. It's not happening, because the cost factor. I even looked at my own little thing. I mean, I got a post and beam barn sitting in the backyard, and I mean, I said, wow, this could be a beautiful ADU with short money. Well, as I started to figure out, the short became long. It was in excess of $200,000, and it wasn't gonna be anything beautiful, it was just gonna be functional, but it was gonna be nice looking. And so, anyway, so I brought up the comment, to get people interested, and if you really get people interested, you gotta offer incentives. And the other thing I would throw out there is, I would just look at this from your end as a pilot program. Pick a number, 1, 2, or 3, but no more than that, and say, okay, we're gonna fund 2 units as an experiment, and put them under the microscope, and see what happens, you know, and give it some time. See how the owners, everything works, the construction, the tenants, everybody involved, and kind of do a little, like a science program. But ADUs are being built right now, and I've asked a question a couple of times, is anyone, and I asked it in town here, is anyone keeping track of the number of ADUs being built? And they looked at me like I had 2 heads. No, the answer is no. No one's keeping even track. So we're building them, because I've seen them in the paper, under, you know, people taking out, they want to change their house and stuff like that, and they call it an ADU. So I'm saying, well, my goodness sakes, so that is actually happening. So we got, and take that another step, there's got to be people that already have ADUs, find out who they are, pick their brain a few times, see what problems they encountered in building an ADU, and what problems do they have maintaining it, or finding a tenant, and so on and so forth, and how's it being accepted into their neighborhood, and so on and so forth, and is it worthwhile for them? So, you know, if you're gonna, obviously you have to go down the affordable road. So it's probably gonna be like a 1-bedroom. The most you can possibly charge is, at tops, $1,700 a month. You gotta go a long time before you're gonna get your money back, things like that. So, and there's a lot of information out there. As all we gotta do is just what tree to go to and shake it and get the information before we go off and hire a lawyer to tell us what we already know. That's the bottom line. Because I think there's plenty of attempt in this room, and I think did I hear right? Someone said, this is a good thing for the housing committee to kind of partner with and take this and run with it. Do something like that. Do some background checking, come up with certain things. Another thing, I've even got, I've seen on Facebook, and I've even on an email address, there's a couple contractors, statewide contractors, specializing in building ADUs. And their employers will come in, will take care of everything, permitting, building, yada, yada. The only thing we won't get is find a tenant for you probably, but we'll build an ADU on your property. You don't have to do anything, just write the check apparently, that was it. And even they alluded to they would go and solicit the permitting. That's a big stumbling block, permit and then costs associated with it. So anyways, I think I've said enough already. But anyways, I would just look just right around the area towns and see what they've been doing, and finding someone that has already done it, and bring them in here, talk to them, and firsthand. Because the lawyer's not gonna be able to tell you firsthand the problems, but if someone's gone through the process, they know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
Can I ask
Yeah,
Kathy a
sure.
question?
Yeah.
Kathy, can I ask you a follow-up question? I just wanted to get clarification about the point that you made about using CPA funds. How does that relate to this?
Well, I just said that the majority of your funding is from CPA funds, or it has been.
Yep.
And just want to make sure that ADUs fit into whatever category it is for the funding, that's all. I'm just saying, let's just be mindful of that.
Yeah, yeah. But my understanding is that the money was given to the trust to be used for affordable housing.
Mhm.
Are there restrictions on,
I don't know the specifics off the top of my head, I'm just saying, we've not delved into this before, so I'm just saying, let's just be mindful of it, that's all.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
Not saying it's not supported, I'm just saying,
Right,
let's
yeah.
be mindful of the categories
sure,
and what we're using the funds for.
okay.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't want to have a problem and not be able to use those funds, that's all.
Yeah,
Yeah, so in the CPC, well, CPA, when you have your community housing bucket, they can participate up to 100%. Once it's given to us, we have to follow 55C. So that rule steps right back in, and it goes right back to the low to moderate, which is 100% AMI or less. So yeah, we would be using it, but obviously, the other goal is to get on the shy list. So whatever we do, it always falls back to that statute that was originally set up.
Okay.
So,
Good, thank you.
which I then would get back to the question that we have to make sure that these would apply, be applicable to the shy list, which I think goes back to the original question we had when it first came up, is we need to make sure that we can split a property and have part of it be designated as true affordable.
yeah, so
So
the
that it
ADU
would
would be
be-
deed restricted, yes.
Right,
A portion of the property would be deed restricted.
but that was the question last time, was whether or not we could actually do that. So if we can't, then, and if it's not gonna be able to be counted, I think that's as far as I can think, that would be the first question, is if it was done, will it definitely be counted? And then we can get involved. If it's not, and you can't split a property, then that would be difficult, I think.
Right. So,
You're suggesting that there's a legal question.
The last time it came up, I didn't bring it up, someone brought up the question around whether or not you could split and say that the main house is like market rate, and then the ADU, say in the garage, would be, in perpetuity affordable. But somebody had a question at the time about whether you could actually do that.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree
so I
with
think
that.
we have to find that out.
I think that is a legal question, and I think that supports the idea of engaging KP law in
100%.
in this question.
Exactly.
From the get-go.
I'm just supporting that with
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah,
and I do believe the application process would be through the local action units. So you're going directly through the state, where the town, it's a LIP. So it's a local initiative program where the town and the owner are doing an application together, they're submitting to the state. And then it would fall back to a fair marketing plan, lottery, 60-day, you probably could do local preference. But yeah, it would still all fall under that, and then that would qualify for the shy list. But that's something we should double check.
okay.
Great.
I would
Sorry.
just ask, when that very important legal question is checked out, if it could possibly be asked as the second part also, which is that the affordable housing deed restriction on the primary portion of the home would also be agreed to, but it would be delayed until either sale or death of the primary homeowner. Because, I'm not up for doing this. But if I was, I can't all of a sudden snap my fingers and make myself in the affordable housing category. But if I was into this, I'd be happy to sign something that said, well, when I sell it or pass away, then you can have it. But I'd want some incentive for that. But,
Okay.
so if it can be both parts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask
Yes.
you a question. And part of the reason I'm so excited to be on this trust is for the educational component. So what I'm hearing is that if a single-family homeowner of a house that's 1,500 square feet wanted to, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, bifurcate their home and have a one-bedroom on the left and a two-bedroom on the right, and then utilizing trust money for that, then the next homeowner who comes in wouldn't be able to bring that back to a single-family home, or would they?
Right, and that would be the question. There's three different, like, almost ADUs. You have detached,
Well, that's.
you know, in the house or
Sure.
basement,
Sure.
you know, a separate unit.
And then the next,
Maybe we can craft it towards some delineation, but we'll
Sure.
have to figure that out.
and then what would the stress then be on the town to track or I guess, monitor rental rates of, say, a detached ADU that's now in perpetuity?
Right.
And who sets I guess the rate would be set by the state,
It's set by HUD.
by HUD.
Mhm.
And that makes sense, but, and then the next question I have is, say if I wanted to do it as a homeowner and put an employee in my house as I break the house into two parts. If I utilize money from the trust, it's then not guaranteed that I can rent to whomever I wanna rent to.
From my understanding, when I
Just making
call,
sure
yeah,
I
when
hear this.
when I call the state, that's why we'll have Brianna just double check everything, but when I spoke, 'cause I was following up, just helping out the fire station, and I asked that question specifically for this, so it would have to go through a lottery system. There's a cost associated with that.
And that's.
And then
that's
there's a
the
fair,
question.
yes, you have to do the fair marketing plan and the lottery.
Yeah, that's right, okay.
So it's roughly probably, in that case, it's roughly about $1,500 per unit to do a fair marketing plan and lottery for one unit.
Great.
Only because you probably will get 90 applications, and that's the problem. That's why it's a little expensive to do that.
Thank you.
Should we be asking Brianna to give us advice as to whether or not to bring in CDP or HAC to help us further this question?
Hmm.
That's one of the requests I'd like to be
Sure.
making of Brianna as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it could be something similar to the rental assistance, if it's something that they do and I know the CDP, we had looked at this, my husband and I, as trying to do this, this was, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, and we went to the CDP, and they have somebody who's designated to get you through the process, the permitting, like, everything. And they tell you how much it's gonna cost, like, they just kind of handhold the whole way. And then at the time there were funds, they had found that we couldn't, but we've since changed the bylaws, so now we can. But, if there's something like we're doing with the rental assistance, somebody who's already doing this, and we could, you know, fund it for Harwich and they manage the ADU process, that would be nice. I don't know if it exists, but, they had a dedicated person at CDP at the time. I don't know about HAC, but it seems like a good idea to, you know, reach out to them.
Yep.
If you want, I can reach out, just because I reached out for the rental assistance to those groups, to just say, do you have, you know, in your management portfolio, do you do something like this? Or, I don't know if that's worth it, or if you guys know already that they don't.
I don't know at this point that they don't, but I would like to ask Brianna to address this whole package,
Got it.
and then.
Yeah. Okay,
and
that
bring
sounds
it
good.
back to us.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
There's less places to fall between
Yeah.
the cracks.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, would it be feasible to have the board members, the trust members, email either you or Larry a list of our questions? Then those questions can land with Brianna? Or how do you want to streamline it for Brianna?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. Why don't we do that to Larry and myself, and then I can just have a sit-down with Brianna and take it from there. And then she can
Efficiency.
present next time all the information that she
Sure.
gathered.
Sure.
That's a great idea,
Okay.
all right?
This is as far as I wanted to be able to go today on
Perfect.
this.
This is great.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks for bringing it up on the
Yep.
agenda. Next, it says A, but it should be B. Begin a conversation of home ownership with the Affordable Housing Trust partnerships. So, Bob, you put this on, so. why don't
Yeah,
you
this
have
is,
it?
this is just another question in my head. We've been focused in this community on rental properties with most of our shy list. There's a few exceptions to that. It seems to me that we ought to also be looking at home ownership, and how does that fit into affordable housing? How do we define whether or not it is or it isn't affordable housing from a homeownership standpoint?
Yeah, I think it'd be great to work with MHP on that, because they did have some programs for first-time buyers and, buy-down programs. So I think that'd be reaching out to other partnerships. We could probably take a look at that.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure what you mean, sorry.
I know what an affordable rental unit is,
Yeah,
because it's defined by number of bedrooms and the income and the number of people in the unit.
okay.
How is an affordable home defined such that it would be eligible to receive our funding? That's
Okay,
what I'm asking.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know how that works,
Mhm.
but MHP might.
Yeah, like a true buy-down program.
Is,
Yeah,
that's, okay.
yeah, be a deed-restricted property.
Mhm.
I think it's the same process. As far as if it'd be local action or just be a lip, but I think you have to go through that process. It's the same process if you want deed restricted and have it fall on the shy list.
So, is it possible for us to put out an RFP for someone to develop affordable homeowner units in Harwich to be partially funded by the Housing Trust?
Yeah, I could do that.
Mhm.
Well, you have the seasonal communities, you have 40Y, all that stuff that's coming up. We haven't even dove into that yet. I haven't even put any time into reading all of that, talking to, it's a lot. So, the new bill that came out at the beginning of the year, that $5 billion, there's gonna be money. But yeah, that's a big project.
Yeah.
Housing Committee.
Well, and if I may, I will wait.
My feet getting in the way. Art Bowden again. Yeah, the buy-down program. Now, that was used with the CPC money.
Yep.
And they were theoretically earmarked deed restricted. And, but the way to market is to get, buy-down homes, for lack of a better term, you have to move fast. In fact, you have to move super fast, because nothing in that category stays on the market any length of time. And most times, they don't even hit the market. They just get sold right away. And most of the time, someone from off Cape buys them up, cash, throws a couple $100,000 into them, turns around and sells them, not at affordable rate, of course, but at market rate, and makes a good little chunk of change. So where the trust could come in, use the buy down as would be the name of the program, but it'd have to be a matter of policy or willing or whatever, when a piece of property comes on that could possibly fit in this category, be right there to buy it.
And my point, Art, is that we have an idea. How do we move from having that idea into being in a position to be able to pounce? We missed out with the Hedge property that went through and got sold.
Yeah, but
In the
right now,
blink of an
so you have money in the bank.
That's right.
You can go as fast as you can write that check.
But we don't have a policy that empowers that.
Well,
We
then.
don't. We need to have something that says that's part of the business that we're in.
Yeah, okay. So other towns have done this. I know Brewster did it. The Brewster went out, well, maybe it's not a good example, and bought, some time ago, I don't know all the details, but I guess they bought a couple condos that needed to be fixed up. And they bought them at a right price. And I guess they went through the process of fixing them up. And then, from what I know, they were able to sell one, and then they had the second one for a long, long time, and they couldn't sell. The problem with condos is the association fee. that threw it right out of the window. I mean, it no longer became affordable. You know, your mortgage is $500 a month, but the homeowner fees are $700 a month. Well, you're upside down. So I think I would stay away from condominiums. But single-family houses. And I think part of the partnership, you would partner with maybe one or two or a group of real estate agents. They're the people with the feet on the ground and know what's coming out there. I mean, if you're doing your homework and you should be doing it well, you should know, if you're a real estate agent, what's getting ready to come on the market. I mean, because you got to beat the other guy out. And a lot of these come on. I see the property transfers, and you know they're flips. You know, $300,000-$400,000, but they do happen. And so you could be the buyer, and then you gotta get it fixed up or whatever. But it's going to take a leap of faith. After you get your, you got to have your own internal procedure nailed down. How and what your parameters are. You're only going to go so high, and so on and so forth. And obviously, it's going to be in Harwich, and you might have to sit on it for a while, or it might move real quick. You don't know. And then you also have to know what it's going to cost to get it market ready, or get it ready for someone to purchase at affordable rate. So
Thank you.
Thanks, Harvard.
I appreciate it.
I think the other idea too, because I think it's a great idea, right? If we can pick things up really quickly that come on and who's doing that. The other idea is when I talked to the Chatham Housing Authority on the different programs they were running for home ownership, they had the maritime housing, they had a number of projects that they do, and just kind of talking about the viability of that, how much time it takes, that kind of thing. But the other piece, like in Chatham, they had the chop houses, which was amazing. It's still the most populated town, part of the town. And so they built them, right? So we have that property across from where we're putting in the Queen Anne Inn project. It might be worth looking at, like you said, put out an RFP that would include home ownership, or talking to, different organizations that focus on that, right? Like Habitat, and see what they have to say in terms of, okay, how would we do that? See what the best model is, see what's most cost effective, how do we get the most, are they single homes, are they, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? Duplexes,
Yeah.
but ownership focused, so that half and half. I don't know if we did, I know we've talked about it in the past, but when I was on the affordable housing in Chatham, we would do, surveys to find out like what people were looking for. Were they looking for rental or home ownership? I don't know I feel like we probably got that in the proposal that was drawn up.
The housing production plan?
Yeah, but the one that was drawn up specifically when I first joined this trust, I can't remember who put it together, but it's on our Affordable Housing Trust website.
The
And I don't know
the
if-
action plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's numbers in there that say, like, this is the percentage of people looking for home ownership versus rental, so that we know, like you're saying, I just think it's a great question of, like, what should our percentage be? What are people looking for, so that we're making sure we're addressing that?
Right.
I just don't know, we could look at that and see what was in there. And then we could also, I don't know if the Cape Cod Commission had some numbers in terms of need.
Kathy?
I just wanted to, reiterate with Habitat. Habitat for Humanity is a great organization to
Yeah.
collaborate with, and you're not gonna have the responsibilities of building and figuring out all that kind of stuff. I mean, if you support them,
Yeah.
okay, in a housing project, you're gonna get things added to the SHI list. And their biggest thing is land acquisition. And so if you could help them with land acquisition, like how about Willow Street there? And, they could do something there.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very adept at, getting cluster zoning through and that kind of thing. So they'd be a great partner.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, to support.
Thank you. And Claudia, back to you, I think we have the power with an RFP, and we have land.
Mhm.
So all of these ideas, we're a fiduciary, we're not looking to build or be a landlord, or toward Kathy's point recently. I think that all makes sense. But we have that power to do it, and we did that with the 456 Queen Anne property. And we still have another parcel north of that.
Mhm.
So we have we could do it through an RFP and find the right partner or developer.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? You good? On to old business, review vote minutes for June 11th, 2025. Motion,
Move that we approve the minutes for June 11th, 2025.
and we'll take a vote. Claudia?
Aye,
Second.
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, second.
Sorry, I'll second that.
Claudia?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
3 with the state. Okay. Next, old business B, review properties, and we'll start with Oak Street.
Oak Street, I would hope that we're ready to go to the town administrator or acting town administrator to develop an RFP for 0 Oak Street.
Any other detail as far as how we're gonna do that, as far as the pricing of it?
I would like their advice.
Okay. So they'll give us the options, whether it's done through appraisal, through assessed value, or we do an RFP with a minimum.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any questions?
Thank you.
I'll make that a motion.
Okay.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Second, okay.
Okay, Claudia?
Aye.
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 I'm an aye.
Great. 4-0. Old business B, 0 Depot Street.
I would like to take the same approach to 0 Depot Street.
Okay.
I'll second for discussion. If that was a motion, Bob, that was a motion, if I understood that.
Yes.
Thank you. Just bring me up to speed, I believe I'm familiar with the Oak Street property, small parcel, not real buildable,
Correct.
is that correct?
Yes.
And this next property, is there any potential buildability to this?
Well, there is a sliver here. There's a big depression here,
Mm-hmm.
vernal pool.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have your 50,
Now I'm
60,
familiar with it.
100-foot rules
Sure,
in place.
okay,
So it's, that's a unique property
okay.
With limitations.
with limitations. Oak Street, to go back to Oak Street, we actually did a site plan for that. So you can see, that one's gonna be easier for someone to figure out what you can and cannot do. We're still waiting for planning on one question about continuous land, if you can build something there. But that's 3 acres, but it's a challenging
Right.
lot, and this one's even smaller.
Smaller.
Yeah.
So the point of my question is, given, and I've got a lot going on in my head right now
Yeah,
after listening to all you,
I'm sure.
what you guys are talking about, and this is really fantastic. But what's in my head right now is if any of these have any opportunity to potentially build something on it. As one previous speaker mentioned, cost of land acquisition is typically the most difficult part of being able to build or create any kind of housing. If we have it, and these are gonna bring in, what would you estimate? 40 grand, 30 grand, 20 grand?
Well, that assessed value on that
Is
is,
this one here?
I have to go to my notes front, but it was, the assessed value on them are pretty high. I think that's
They
like-
are pretty
Yeah,
high.
like
Okay.
255.
Oh, understood.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's an,
Point being, I would just like to make sure that, and I'm sure you've all done this already, and I'm coming in late to the game, like in the 9th inning here, but it'd be great to make sure that we vetted the properties to see what they would command for a purchase price versus what if it's something that we could use as Art used the term earlier, a pilot program, and build 2 or 1 small house on it and see where we land with that. I don't know, I just would like to make sure that we're not just selling a piece of property that is in the care, custody, and control of the trust, and wish we had kept it to build something on it down the road. That's all I'm saying.
good point.
I could be totally wrong, but just a thought.
We've also been talking about this for about 2 to 3 years.
As I
well.
said, I'm in the ninth inning.
So you're in the ninth inning,
Mr.
so
Chair.
yes,
Maybe,
So we're
maybe
gonna
the 11th inning.
we're gonna wheel things back.
Great.
Go ahead, Val.
I have to step out just for one
Sure.
second.
I think in my mind, it was determined, Jeff, that this parcel didn't lend itself to building multiple properties. That it would be a standalone, single unit. And my thinking was that if we were to sell that, we could use that, the proceeds of that, to be able to feed into the buy-down program, or the rental assistance program, or the ADU support program, and have more of an impact than just one unit.
And that's what I was just gonna say, is where is our greatest impact with the funds or the asset that could be sold to create funds? Where's the greatest impact? And it's obvious you all have thought of all of this. I'm just, like I said, coming in and just throwing my ideas on the table, but thank you.
That's,
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, and just to continue the conversation real quickly, so it's a little bit over an acre, it's not located in zone 2, but there is gonna be the 60 feet no disturb on the vernal pool, so it has some challenges. So we're at a second
we had a second for discussion.
discussion,
Yes, yeah.
okay. Do you wanna redo the motion?
Could I inject?
I'm sorry, I didn't see you there,
That's
my
okay.
apologies.
No problem. Thank you. Art Bowden again. Jeff, we're on the same wavelength here. The experiment.
That's a scary
Oak Street.
thought, you and I on the same wavelength, by the way.
I feel better. The property is only gonna have certain value, and everyone was kind of dancing around it. And I had brought this up, well, maybe in my head I brought it up. An RFP or whatever could go out, but if you could, what I have in mind is, someone could use this as an experiment, or sell it outright, as build a tiny house on it, or maybe 2. And number one, firsthand again, it's like getting that car, you can kick the tires, you can go take a look at it, you can sit in it, try the steering wheel out, look out the windows, all this stuff. If you can get a developer to come in and build a tiny house on it, and as an experiment, just see what the acceptance is. Maybe everyone in town will just get up and say, we're gonna leave town if we build tiny houses here. We don't wanna be in a town where tiny houses, or say, well, that's the greatest idea we ever had to solve some of our housing problems, is with tiny houses. I'm not saying we're gonna build many more, but we'd have something in our own backyard that we could say, well, here's a tiny house, this is what it could look like, this is what it can do. It can only do what it can do. It's only good for one person, or a young couple that's gonna move on for a short time or something like that, or an elderly person, that's all they need is a couple rooms and a decent place to live. But once again, it would be a learning exercise, So, I mean, I don't think we have any real tiny houses in Cape Cod. I mean, we do, because we converted, cabins and stuff like that into housing. So we do have tiny houses around. We just don't recognize them. They're there. You probably have a number in town that we don't even recognize. But anyways, so this would be like a showroom. You got a new dealership coming to town called Tiny Houses, and he's got to build a showroom. So, because here's the product I'm going to be selling. So it might help that way. I don't know. But as Mr. Handler pointed out, I think the value of the land is not that great. If it was worth a few $100,000, so maybe a little different. But anyways, think just about it. That's all.
Thanks, Art.
Thank you very much.
So the assessed value is a little bit over $201,000.
Thank you.
That's the assessed
Yeah,
value.
yeah,
But I don't think that weighs in on, I don't want to sell the property short, because we're trying to,
Of course,
we're definitely trying to sell it.
Sure, sure.
But that's where we're at. So it's either we're gonna do it at an assessed value, or we get an appraisal spend money, which probably don't want, would like to do. Or we do an RFP with the minimum price. And we let whoever's looking to purchase it do their own due diligence.
To do their own due diligence and to do their own creativity.
Mm-hmm.
To Art's point, if we create an opportunity for someone to come in with an out-of-the-box idea and run with it,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that a home run?
I think your motion was to move this to administration for advice, on which way to.
For advice as to how to go about the RFP.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes. That was the
To-
motion in the second.
To sell it or to just explore opportunities?
To develop an RFP
To sell.
to sell.
So whether it's done through appraisal, assessment, or a straight, well, actually, scratch that. So RFP with the minimum, or we can actually just sell it through 30B procurement, through the assessed value, or we get an appraisal. So RFP, or we go, from my understanding, just go right through the appraisal or the assessed value that we have.
All right,
Or
I'm so
can get
sorry. I
from-
feel like I'm backing way up then. I have
Yeah.
to back way up then.
Yeah,
So we've decided we're definitely selling and taking the profit to apply to other affordable housing projects and not to find out if somebody would be wanting to build affordable housing on these properties.
In fact, we're not limited as to how we would use those funds if someone bought that piece of property and said, I have this idea. I need some financial support from the housing trust to make it real. Is this something that you would be interested in doing? Then we would be in a position of saying, well, we just have this cash come in. We could apply it to this creative idea.
So again, forgive me. I feel like I'm way behind.
No,
But
that's-
so wouldn't we then just put out an RFP to develop affordable housing on it and skip the step of selling it and then hoping somebody would put affordable housing on it? Am I totally?
So, yeah, the problem is getting a developer to do the one unit. That's always been
That's-
the trick. So we have companies like Penrose that want, like, they're 40, 50, 60, 90 units. It's
Okay.
completely different.
Okay,
When you get into one unit,
That's-
you know, whether it's Habitat or someone like that, possible, but, you know, the idea between these two properties, because it was a challenge, I don't think we want to go the route that we did Oak Street and spend money for a site plan and see if it can be. That was our test. And when you look at Deep Oak Street, there's more restrictions on this property than there are at Oak Street. So that was really, these two properties, we were thinking selling both of these to get dollars into the trust.
and so then, would we want to approach Habitat and say, we have these two properties with all these limitations on it, would you want it first? And then if they said no, then say, okay, then we'll
Well,
take the
we
money.
have to do an RFP to do that. We just can't offer it to them. We'd have to go through
Okay.
procurement on that.
So would we, I guess I'm just kind of thinking about all the different points that were made around land and around units, and if it's just one, but still, if it's something that's as simple, like an RFP, Habitat takes it, they just go with it, and we're done, is that worth, right, the 200,000 we'd make on the property, which it would be, right, because we're figuring out, like, the units at the fire station were what, 150 each?
150 to 160 per.
So, you know, I guess, I know it's late in the game to be bringing this up, but
No,
I'm
it's
just
fine.
trying to think about
Yeah.
if that would make sense and put out the RFP for them, make sure nobody has interest. And if there's nothing viable, then we could say, well, that's okay, we tried, let's sell it and use the money some other way. Before we release the properties, just to make sure.
Mr. Chair, if I might just build on Claudia's point. The spirit of the motion for me was to, with the Oak Street property and then the Depot Street property, was to go to admin and explore options if we were to dispose of the property. Those options would come back to this trust
Correct.
for a discussion on whether or not what we've found out by way of administration is the right next step.
Yeah,
And I think that's what you're saying,
yeah.
right? Claudia, or am I putting words in your mouth?
I think there's two different things happening. I think one is how do we go about disposing of the properties, and mine is, do we do that, or do we find out first if, like, there's interest in, you know, are they viable for affordable housing, even if it's just one, you know, home for sale through Habitat?
And I'm saying, for me at least, in my mind, that comes down to what the value of the property would be when it goes out for an RFP. And that's where we're going to administration to understand which way we would go.
Right. And without an appraisal, we're asking to do it by assessed
By
value.
assessed
for
value.
40
That's what I'm
through
just trying
30B,
That's right.
or we do an RFP with the minimum.
That's exactly right.
Okay?
Well, and those are our decisions, so like, we've done
Correct.
this
Right.
before, and so we just go with, I mean, I think we have a general idea, right? If
Yeah.
we've got 200,000, there's a number, so it's just, I don't, you know, for me, I'm like, okay, that's a number, well, it may seem loose, but it's how we've done it in the past, like when we sold the industrial land that we had, we just kind of picked which one we wanted, which, you know, I guess you're saying, let's find out exactly what those numbers are, or if we don't have anything on them.
Would you get close to the number that you were looking for? Would you get over the number when you've disposed of property in the past?
We have it. This
I'm
is-
sorry,
this is-
these would be okay.
This is all,
It's the select board, I'm getting the two
there's a-
confused
yeah,
now.
there's a lot of things that
We
we're.
did it a
the
couple
We've done it a
industrial
couple
one
of times,
wasn't
yeah.
us.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, it goes back to that math I was talking about earlier in the meeting, where, 100, it's not really $150,000 a door, so I always use the Yarmouth Commons property. Town got involved, Yarmouth, they did 69 units, I think they gave 30,000 per unit, 1.2, they got 69 units for 30 grand per door. Wow. So 465 Queen Anne, if you break down that project, even Penrose is asking for money from CPC funds later on and from the trust. If we give them $1 million, 60 units, we're paying $16,000 a unit. So it's kind of, you know, it's, we gotta be careful on how we spend the money. That's why we gotta balance it out. So maybe getting some funds in to help some of these smaller projects could be a good idea. But I think that's where we started with it all, the whole conversation.
So this motion is to go about seeing what it would take to sell it and those three particular options for it. And if it comes back and it says, okay, they're 200,000 apiece, at that point, I would say, okay, I'd want to talk to Habitat and see what they would do. I don't know how the model works with Habitat, like, I don't know if we give it to them, if it's a sale, that type of thing, so
It would be an RFP.
it would be an
Put it out
RFP
for an RFP for a developer,
to come in and then, okay,
and they can bid on it.
okay,
And Habitat could be the developer,
okay,
Yeah,
or not.
right.
all right. As long as that's a component of the process, that would be something I would strongly advocate for.
Okay. I think Kathy has something to say.
Have you all walked
Yes.
Zero Depot?
I've been there.
I have not, so,
Have you?
I have not.
Okay. I walked Zero Depot long before it
Yeah.
became under the jurisdiction of the Affordable Housing Trust. It's a very limited parcel. I highly doubt you're even going to get 200,000 or even close to it for it. So let's put that right out there.
okay,
It's limited because it has a retired, or an old cranberry bog in the back of it.
There's a
And
big
it's got a
depression.
little
Yep.
slip, and I walked it with the conservation agents at the time, and we talked about the possibility of what kind of a septic there had to be, and whether there was even room for a small duplex, because we were trying to, you know, maximize the property. You know, Habitat is like everybody else. The more density, the more economical it is for them, the more feasible it is.
okay,
They do properties here and there where it's just a single or, you know, like a duplex unit, but most often they're looking, you know, for efficiency of utilities, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, just keep that in mind. It's,
yeah,
you know, I would think that the Oak Street property might have more value because you could actually carve out a piece for a house, and it's more desirable.
Right, thank you.
And I guess that's what I rely on you guys for, because I feel like I joined after you had already looked at these,
Yeah,
so.
like I said, we've been talking about these for,
Yeah.
years now.
So
but,
I don't need to add new
Yeah,
points of view. I'm happy to trust what you've
Yeah.
decided on.
I don't have a problem with your new points of view.
yeah.
That's, I
think-
value those.
I think it'd be good to get in front of Megan, see what she can come up with, and maybe we're missing something. Maybe it's not as straightforward as a
Mhm.
RFP, or we could sell it for the assessed value. So let's figure that out first,
Okay.
and have her come back with some information, and we can make a decision.
Perfect, thank you.
So think about
Okay,
that.
great, thank you.
Next
No.
is,
We had a motion and a second.
I'm
No
sorry, yeah, motion and a second.
Yeah,
Aye.
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 Thank you for that.
Sure.
I'm new to this. Old business B4, I'm at 3, Zero Depot Road, J1, known as J1, J2, J3.
I would move to table that.
Okay?
Second.
Claudia?
aye.
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 I'm an aye.
Okay, next, old business B4, 265 Sisson Road, the junior theater.
I believe that we have a responsibility, made clear for us and to us by Michael McCaskill's presentation at our last meeting, wherein it's totally unclear who's on first. And I know who's on second, but I don't know about what's gonna happen on third. It makes me extremely uncomfortable to be in this position. And I asked Larry shortly after our last meeting to arrange a special meeting with KP Law to go through this clarification with us. And this clarification, from my point of view, has to happen. And it has to happen as soon as possible. So, that's why it's on the agenda. I needed to say that,
Okay. So I'd like to see you get in front of KP Law.
absolutely.
Any particular items as far as the lease?
Well, absolutely. It's an ownership question, it's an insurance question, it's a liability question, and it's just wrong for us to continue down this road of not doing anything about it. That's not responsible from my point of view.
Yeah, so Jeff, last meeting, I don't know if you were there.
Completely familiar with
You
where we're
understand?
going with this, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So, should we take a vote to get in front, or just leave it?
Well, we're in a position, we're in this odd position
I know.
of not having a chair. And
You mean a town administrator?
we don't have a town administrator, therefore we don't have a chair.
Got it.
And
But Larry is the acting chair.
was, will he be redesignated as our leader?
I think we should wait and see what the select board does tomorrow night at their meeting,
Oh, okay.
if they appoint an interim town administrator, and then see what the decision is there. I'll try to attend that meeting as well,
Okay.
so.
Daytime.
Oh, yeah, right.
I'm just opposed to continue to mindlessly go down this road.
Yeah. Agreed. I think we've been absentee landlords. There's a little confusion on who does what, where and when, and, they came in front of us to put a fence up, then we found out stairs were being built, and we own the property. So it goes back to the original comments are, we're a fiduciary, we're not really landlords. So we gotta figure out what to do with the property, and I think straightening out the lease, the ownership, I think we just get this in front of KP Law to help us out. It's that simple, so no need for a vote.
I don't think you need a vote on any.
Yeah, we don't need a vote on
I
that,
don't
yeah,
think we
no
need
need
a-
for that, yeah.
We have consensus on that.
Yeah.
True.
True.
Okay.
All right, I could take care of that.
Right.
Okay, and then old business C, updates on 456 Queen Anne Road. This was for Larry. He is closely talking to Penrose, so I'd like to table that to the next meeting.
Okay.
Unless you want to, if you, anything you want to add.
You need a vote to table it, or just
No,
agreement?
yeah, just agree.
I just had a couple of comments I wanted to make
Sure.
about 456, if I could.
Sure.
Again, it's Noreen Donahue speaking on my own behalf. So Jeff's coming in on the ninth inning, and I'm coming from left field. So this is really outrageous ideas. I have to tell you first, I think the project is wonderful, and all the work Penrose has done and the committee, it's, you know, I'm just thrilled by it. I do live somewhat in that area, and personally, my personal opinion for what it's worth, I think the biggest problems are gonna be traffic and timing. I did watch the presentations, and, you know, how, I understand there's a document that won't come in until August, and that's when the permitting process would begin. And I honestly don't know how it gets through permitting from September to November, you know, so bearing that, it seems like a way short period of time. They're very competent, but still, I can't imagine something going through planning in less than 2 months. But so since my concerns are about traffic, I had a couple of crazy questions. Penrose talked about that paper road that they had left. And obviously, one of the big traffic issues is going to be the proximity of the entrance to the Queen Anne Route 124 intersection. Was it ever considered to extend that paper road over to either Kara or even Oak Street and drop down the,
So Nora, I don't want to cut you off. I think we were just going to give updates for 456 Queen Anne Road.
Okay.
More than happy to talk about this, but maybe at a different time.
all right, great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks very much.
Next in old business, review data on rental assistance program. Claudia?
I don't have an update on that.
Okay.
I mean, I think the idea was every 6 months. I know we've been asking for more frequent updates, but I think we can certainly ask for the next meeting.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, so our next meeting is August 11th, 2025. And we're back to that 1 o'clock meeting time. That works for everyone still?
Absolutely, yes.
That's it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Claudia?
Aye.
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 I'm an aye.
Excellent.